Hey there, my friends. Still on? You can't escape it. It's on the news around us, all the chaos going on in Minneapolis especially. And something I was thinking about last night, even looking back on my own life. Completely different circumstances, but the same thought. It's really easy to think life is like this video game, and you are the center of the universe playing the game. And then all of a sudden you find out that nobody really cares about you, and things happen really fast and really random, and you don't really have that much control, and you better be careful. When I was a young man, I was in a jet crash, broke my back, killed the co-pilot. A split second before that happened, I'm the baddest dude on the planet. Look at me. Okay, that morning, playing golf. I got a bright future ahead of me. I'm one of the smartest. I'm one of the brightest. Look at me. And then that quicker than you can do anything about it. You know, one second, everything's fine. The next second, warning lights are going off everywhere. And then you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm, in a hospital, in a body cast, and somebody's dead. And you realize in that moment you had no control. It's a scary moment, by the way. Well, I've noticed the same thing in people not really understanding what's happening with everything going on in Minneapolis. And it's, everyone's going, this is what I would do in that split second. Okay? On both sides, by the way. I feel horrible for that person that got killed. They have no, you go to a gunfight and you don't know what a gunfight is. You have no idea what you're going for. You got people that got you all worked up, thinking that you're going to go there and you're like master of the universe, and you don't really know what it is you're doing. On the flip side of it, you're a young man, you want to do right and wrong, you go into law enforcement. You don't really understand what it's going to be like in a split second when you got a gun and you feel threatened. What's going to happen? You don't know. And then everybody pretends it's like Call of Duty, and they're like taking a video clip and they're like slowing it down frame by frame as if we see life that way, which we don't. There's two kind of famous like training type scenarios. People that learn to use weapons know about, especially if you're in law enforcement. And the whole point is how little time you have to react in a situation that you feel threatened. One of them is famous now. It's kind of controversial because a lot of this depends on who's got the gun and who's running and all this and that. But there's this famous test where if someone's standing about 21 feet away from you, which is pretty far. 21 feet, that's pretty far. And you have a holstered gun. But if they have a knife and they run at you, on average, they can get to you and stab you and kill you before you can get out, react to that, before your brain can process threat, get out my gun, shoot, you're dead. 21 feet's a long way, which is why, you see lots of videos. Heck, maybe you were a knucklehead getting pulled over sometime and you started to get out of your car and you did. What did the officer do? Immediately, they put their hand on their gun. You know why they did it? Did they did it because they're a murderer? Did they did it because they want to get you? No, because they know you open that door and they're 10 feet away and you got a knife and they don't have their hand on their gun, you could kill them with a knife or a brick. And so what are they taught to do? You get a hand on a gun, you get it up the second that you feel threatened. Now, another one, and I've done this with my kids, kind of freaks them out. They think I'm crazy, but I just want to show them how guns and knives and weapons are nothing to play around with. Is I'll get like a Nerf gun. And I've seen people do this with actually real weapons, but, you get a Nerf gun, and you load it up, and I'll have them point it right at me. And they're standing like right in front of me, and they're pointing right at my chest. And I'll say to them, okay, you can't pull the trigger till I move. You see me move, pull the trigger, and you're not going to hit me. Pull the trigger. And I'll stand there, and I go, boom, smack the gun away. And every single time that bullet goes, whoop, that way. Every single time. You know why? Because you can't react that fast. Your brain, you think, I'm Superman. You think in the moment, I can make this decision, and you can't. I can react. You can't. You can't do it. Okay? That's why mistakes happen. That's why people die in war. We're not Supermen. Okay? Now, why do I bring all this up? Because, man, you hear talk about all this craziness going on now. And whatever side you're on, whatever belief you have, it's almost like there's this inevitable clash coming. And you see some people that you can tell they almost like want it to happen. For the love of God, we do not want it to happen. We do not want a civil war. Okay? We don't want it. Okay? Because you know what happens? What will happen every day, every moment, every hour? It's what you see in that video. It'll be people thinking, all worked up, hey, I'm Superman, and I can handle this situation, and I know exactly how I would act. And guess what? That ain't how it works. That's not how it works. You can't react that fast. You can't. Now, how do we come back from that? Well, in my opinion, we've got to try to find a way to have some common ground with our neighbors. Because if we can't begin to find peace with the people around us, okay, you will not find peace anywhere. And I want to share, a moment recently that if this interaction was happening online, I promise you it would have ended with a bunch of, 4-letter words and hate and you're a Nazi and all this and that. But it didn't, because it happened in person. And one person at least was willing to listen. So my wife was at Walmart the other day, okay? And she's at Walmart shopping. And it was funny. She came home. She said they ended up talking for like a half hour, although my wife didn't do much of the talking. And this black lady walked up to her and started talking to her. And my wife was like, this is interesting. Why is she talking to me? And as the woman was talking, it was obvious this woman was kind of an activist. And my wife is very nice, very good listener, is not confrontational. They start talking. And then at some point, my wife said it was very bizarre. They're like in a line, they're like in an aisle at Walmart having this talk. It starts off talking about kids and school and homeschooling, which we do, and all this and that. And then at one point, this woman that my wife's talking it to uses it as a segue to begin telling my wife how racist America is. So she's talking to the white lady, telling her how racist everybody is, which that could be true, I guess. But she's telling her that, and then just going off, about, all the tropes that you hear. Now imagine if that was online. It wasn't in person, okay? Because obviously my wife is not someone who, that would cotton to necessarily everything this lady was saying. But she listened to her. And by the end of the conversation, these two people that probably have diametrically opposed views of the world are smiling. They know each other's name. They know the names of their kids. Okay? I think one of the things this woman said was how one of her sons was a bad kid and he was in prison and it was white people's fault. Okay. Now, my wife could have explained to her, well, I'm not sure, maybe, okay? But she didn't. She listened to her. Imagine online, probably wouldn't have got much sympathy from, somebody on another side. But by the end of it, in spite of what was said, they were friendly. Okay? My wife said if I saw her again, I would say hi to her. I would call her by name. I'm telling you right now, if there's such thing as like puppet masters, I don't know if there are. Maybe we do it to ourselves. Maybe it's the worst of us that technology's using. I mean, who knows? But what they don't want us doing is having conversations like that. They don't want us sitting down talking to each other, listening, not reacting, understanding each other. Because you know what would happen if that woman who was talking to my wife, if they saw each other again, if we were in a community that was closer, eventually she'd realize my wife isn't a racist. And eventually she would realize my wife would help her any way she can. And eventually she would find out that that woman's husband, me, spent years volunteering his time in prisons helping young men like her son to get out of prison and have good lives. But all she saw was bad. And I'll say this, if that conversation had happened online, maybe all my wife would have seen as bad. Maybe all my wife would have been like, who is this blah, blah, blah woman saying all this crazy stuff? But she didn't, because they were there together, and it was human. A lot of the current problems in England, I think, go back to World War I, where millions of young men were killed over basically nothing. Look at the history of World War I. Talk about tribal warfare pushed by elites that just killed. I mean, there was a battle that 1 million young men died in. Think about that. 1 million young men died in a battle. For what? For nothing. You know, one minute they got their whole lives ahead of them. The next minute they're in a trench and, you know, some general from 20 miles behind says, jump over the side of that trench. And they go and they're dead. Their heads are taken off. All their friends are dead. Millions. Look at what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. Every day they're estimating now about 1,000 Russians are being killed. And who are they? Okay? They're not the richest kids. They're not the elite kids. The people that prisoners they've had to get, people they've taken off the streets, old people in debt, you name it. And if this keeps building, that's what will happen. Okay, the rich will stay rich, the elite will stay elite, and on both sides there will be dead people in the street that a millisecond before a bullet took their head off thought they were invincible, thought they could react. Man, someone shoots at me, I'll be like the Flash. I'll get out of the way. No, you won't, man. You will get a bullet in the head. You won't even see it coming. You'll be like Tony Soprano at the end of The Sopranos, eating your waffle, and then it just goes black. That's all that's going to happen to you. But all we got to do is listen to each other. We got to talk. We got to be better neighbors. We got to focus on what we can handle. The people around us, the community that we're in, our own family. And you don't want your kids to be radicalized, whatever that means. Eat dinner with them. Go to church with them. Have conversations with them about how they're feeling and what's going on in the world. You want them to be radicalized. Okay, you don't want them to be a Nazi. You don't want them to be some communist radical. Okay? Well, one thing you better not do is just let them be fed from all the hate online that doesn't come from other human beings, but comes from all these things manipulated them. You want to keep them from that? Have them come with you when you go to the grocery store. Meet people they don't see every day. Talk to somebody they think they got nothing in common with. And they might even leave the conversation and go, that was bizarre. Man, she's got some weird thoughts. But she's not so bad. She's nice. She was nice to me. She's got a nice smile. Maybe I'll see her again and we'll talk. Maybe next time she'll listen to me and she'll understand me a little bit better. Or maybe next time I talk to her, she'll learn a little bit about my son or my husband, and she'll realize, we're not all so bad. We live here. We want the same things. But man, if we don't do that, bad things are coming. And if you're someone watching this and you're on either one of those sides and you think you're Superman, you're not. Your friends are going to get killed. You're going to get killed. People you love are going to get killed. You're going to be forgotten. No one's going to remember your name. Quick, name 5 radicals from the 60s who gave their lives for their movement. Name them. You can't. You don't remember them. You don't know who they are. Quick, name 10 people that died in Iraq fighting for our country. You can't. No one remembers them. Okay? You can't do it. You think that's going to be you? It ain't going to be you. You're just going to be one more person with a bullet in your head that no one remembers. All right? And what you should be focused on are the things that matter. Your friends, your family, your community, doing good, helping people, going to places. I see all this divide in our country, and I used to remember when I spent all those years, before we got so busy with the kids, I kind of feel bad about it. I went to Pendleton Maximum Security Prison. I went to the Maximum Security Juvenile Prison. I went to the Maximum Security Women's Prison. Okay, why did I do it? I just felt like I needed to. It was the right thing to do. I'm a Christian. It says, what do you do as a Christian? You visit people in a prison. If you don't do that, or don't even have a desire to do it, I don't even know what you are. And what was always fascinating about me is how I would go in there and meet people that on the surface we had nothing in common. We didn't grow up in the same place. We didn't look the same. And some of the best conversations I ever had were in there. Because you know why? There's no tech. There's no phone. It's just you and another human being. Another thing I learned was how grateful they were that I would come. Again, man, you're taking your time. It took you 3 hours to get through security. It's going to take you an hour to get out of here, to spend an hour talking to me. Yeah, man, it's the right thing to do. If I was you, I'd want someone to come visit me. What else I learned? After about 4 or 5 years, no one comes to visit them. You're in prison 4 or 5 years. Family doesn't come. Friends don't come. Nobody comes. And then when I would be in these waiting rooms, most of the time, because the way it would work, say at Pendleton, you would come in. They'd have to know ahead of time you were coming. And you'd wait before they even let you start going through the procedures. I think they did this to mess with you because the guards didn't want people to visit because it was a pain in their butt. So you'd wait like in this waiting area up front before you went through any security. And you're taking off all the stuff that you can't. There's little lockers, and you put it in there, and you just wait. It's a big area. A lot of people can fit in there. And then after a while, they'd be, all right, we're ready for you to come through security. So then you go through security, and you have to sign some papers, and they pat you down. You go through metal detector, and then you start going through these series of gates. And then you get in between these two gates, and there's like this bulletproof glass, and they're asking you more questions. And the whole time you're waiting as you go through. It takes a long time. And then you would, finally get to where you were going to go in the prison, and I'll never forget it because you never really got used to it because the Pendleton Maximum Security Prison was this really old prison. It didn't look like the dystopian, from an apocalypse movie, finger prisons like this. It was one of those like out of Shawshank Redemption, with the brick walls, and it was kind of square, but it was old. And you would get through that security area, and you would get to the door that was you were in the prison when you went through that door. Like you were there. Like if they were out of their cells, they're walking by it. And this smell would hit your face. And it's hard to describe other than imagine somebody created perfume made out of sweat, urine, and feces. And they took sweat, urine, and feces, and they mixed them all up, and they turned it into a perfume that permeated every surface, every particle of air, and it just hit you. Okay? Every single time. That's what it was like. And then you go down these hallways, and this is maximum security prison, and the people that, hadn't been in trouble in a while aren't walking around. You're walking right by them. It's like you and one other person and like 50 people. And then you get to the yard, and after all that ordeal, you'd be there. I say all that. I usually did it alone. There was usually in a prison with thousands of people, nobody there seeing them. The outside world did not care. They might as well have been dead. Guess what? You're dead, that's what happens. No one's going to the graveyard to visit your grave. No one's thinking about you. You're not Superman, you're not Superwoman. You're not the one who can bend bullets or defy your nervous system and get out of the way. You're not. So quit thinking that, man. And if you want to change the world, do it the right way. You know how you do it? You show up at a prison and you spend some time talking to human beings that have been forgotten. Okay? That's how you change the world. You know how you change the world? That person, that woman in a store, basically insulting you, calling you a racist, blaming people like you for her son being in prison. You know what you do? You listen to her. You love her. You pray for her. You hug her. You learn her name. You say, you know what? I look forward to seeing you again the next time at Walmart. It's fun. Who's that single mom on the street? Does she got enough groceries? Does she got enough food? Okay? A person really angry at you. Let them be angry. Let them talk. Okay? It's not hard. It's just easier to be angry. It's easier to vent. It's easier for our testosterone to take over. It's easier, it massages our egos to think, I'm going to stand up to the police. Look at me. Makes you feel good and tough. Flip side, makes you feel good and tough when you got a gun and you're all like suited up. Look at me, I'm tough. And now you got two people facing each other, neither of whom controls much. Neither of whom can get out of the way of a bullet. Neither of whom have much time to react. Neither of whom are going to make good decisions in tough situations. But what if they met at Panera? What if they met breaking bread? What if they met at church? What if they met at their kids' school? Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Maybe they get to know each other. Maybe it wouldn't end that way. So my friends, we don't want a civil war. We don't. The only civil war we want is a civil war against people that tell us the only way to change the world is through fighting. And the only way to change the world is through confrontation. And, it's almost a cliche how he can get used. But, at the end of the day, if you go back to when our country was at a really bad time and Dr. Martin Luther King got jailed, was walking around. If you read his writings, if you read his words, if you read what changed so much in our society for the good, with him it all came back to one thing: love. And love, as I talked about in an earlier podcast, is not an emotion. Emotion gets you in trouble. Emotion gets you angry at people. Love is an action. Love is what you do for another human being. And when people see you do those actions, that's when you change people's minds. That's when you change people's hearts. That's when you have a true civil war against what's truly bad. So hopefully you will go make a friend today. You'll help ratchet things down. You'll make your community, you'll make your neighborhood a better place. Until then, I'm still on. I'm out.